fucking pain in the ass. And then anybody else who was on the video would just join in,
Oh
but
yeah,
you would always start it. That's
always. I do it to everybody. It's not just you. Just so you
yeah.
know, it's
Oh yeah.
me.
It's what's funny is I do it to everybody else too.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's
There's a reason why we get along.
yeah, yeah. All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you all so much for listening to Meaningless, where we look into internet nonsense and try to understand what in the hell it all means. I am your humble host, Nate, and should I invite Bobby?
Too late. I'm in.
All right, Bobby. Put Bob away, Bobby. Bobby activated, Bobby operated boy. Bobby operate. Bobby's not included.
Hey, there
That
you
works. Bobby's not included.
go. I
I
like
like
that
that one. Yeah. So I have a meme for you to look at, and I
one. All
would
right.
like you to describe it to our listeners, how it looks and how it reads. Now, I'm going to say up front that there's going to be a little bit of this that is not going to be fully recognizable immediately, because there were some things in it that I didn't know what they were either.
Okay.
But I will drag this over here for you.
Okay. Wow, I don't know what most of that is.
Yeah. Okay. Well, how does it read?
Okay. At the top it says atheist be like. At the bottom it says IDK. I don't know, man. I don't see any evidence. And then let's see, what do we got? I'm not sure what that first one is, but
Yeah,
you
I
got
didn't know either
the
when I first saw
Garden
it.
of Eden maybe, and then is that Mary, like Virgin Mary?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then you got some bees. You got Jesus, one of those like where he pops up somewhere and he'd be like, everybody's like, oh, it's Jesus, or no?
it's
Is that the Shroud of
it's the Shroud of
the
Turin.
Shroud of
Yeah,
Turin?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And then you got the night sky. Like is that supposed to be the Milky Way?
yeah. Milky Way.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So we've got one of these like Christian memes here it's poking fun at atheists. Atheists saying, "I don't know, man. I don't see any evidence." And then it's got 6 images. The top left one, it looks like a crowd with like maybe there's a swirl in the sky.
Yeah.
And then the middle one, it's like a tree and a sunset. And the good guess on the Garden of Eden thing, because
That was a guess.
that's a good guess, because honestly, I just thought sunset or whatever, and we're kind of both right. Well, I'll
Okay.
get to why. But then the
Okay.
top right, there's an image of the Virgin Mary. Looks like a painting. Bottom left is some bees with a honeycomb. The bottom middle is the Shroud of Turin, and then bottom right is the Milky Way in the sky. So I think presumably these are all evidences that God exists, and atheists are saying, "Hey, I don't see any evidence." Right?
Right. Is that how you
So
pronounce it? Turin or Turin?
I just say
I always
Turin.
say Turin.
I,
Turin. I don't
you
even know
know,
how I
I
say
don't
it.
even know if it matters.
It's
Honestly,
fake anyway, and didn't they just prove it wasn't?
it's we will be talking about that.
Okay.
So, all right. So, for disclosure's sake, I am an atheist, but I do want to start by saying that my intention with this episode is not to make fun of religion or religious people.
Yeah.
A belief in God is very common, and it would be absurd for anyone to assume that such a ubiquitous belief would be indicative of like a lack of intelligence or something like that.
Right.
That would have to be a lot of dumb people on the planet, and there are a lot of dumb people on the planet,
Oh yeah.
but not that many. Like not so many that like most the humans that you meet, are
Yeah.
dumb. And so I'm not trying to suggest that a belief in God is dumb.
No.
I will be, however, not kind to those who would use organized religion or use the predisposition of those with faith to fool them or to trick them or to grift them or to even fool or trick or grift the general public. I'm not going to be kind to those people. Grifters do not deserve kindness. They are intentionally deceitful.
Right.
So, like I said, falsehoods do harm, and I am vehemently against chicanery and those pathetic villains who they peddle this crap. That's part of the reason why we do this podcast is to kind of dispel some of the things that are intentionally not true, or sometimes clumsily not true. And also, faith is defined as a belief without evidence, so it's difficult for me not to be suspicious of those trying to sell evidence to the faithful, because like the whole point is you don't need evidence, right?
Yeah, you're supposed to have faith. Yeah.
Like, so I don't mean somebody making a meme like this. I'm not
Yeah.
referring to the person who made the meme. The meme may have just been someone who, like everybody, has an instinctual need for evidence. Even people who have faith in a god will find themselves desiring evidence from time to time, and this desire for evidence is a major driving factor in things like a crisis of faith. Like people have a crisis of faith because they're not seeing evidence. But the point of faith is to believe without the evidence. But this crisis, because of the potential of like a crisis of faith and because of our innate desire for evidence, some people see this as a weakness to be exploited, especially charlatans and people who would be grifting,
Oh yeah.
grifting Christian people. We're going to kind of focus on Christian things because that's what this meme focuses on. It looks like specifically it's about the belief in the God of Abraham. And since the Shroud of Turin is there and the Virgin Mary, presumably it's Christianity.
Right.
So it's the charlatans who are trying to exploit people. Those are the people who I am wary of. They're trying to sell evidence to the faithful, and parts of this meme do include, whether intentionally or not, examples of intentional deceit, like fake things that are known to be fake, that were used to fool and deceive people. So I'm going to start with the most simple to explain images in this meme and kind of work my way up to the more interesting tiles in the collage. And so we're going to go over these supposed proofs of God. So we're going to start with this top middle. We've got a picture of a sunset with some trees. There's nothing particularly interesting about this photo. It appears to have originally been taken by a photographer named Alex U. Gaelic. And it can be licensed through Adobe Stock Photos. But where this memer most likely got this image is from a Christian websites who have been using this photo to represent the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So good guess with the Garden of Eden thing.
Thank you. It's a nice picture. Looks like a nice place.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's a photograph too. It's not a painting. It kind of looks like
okay.
it's a painting, but this is a photograph. Alex is a photographer, and he takes some very cool looking pictures like this.
Nice picture, Alex.
Yeah, good job. Shoot, lost my spelling. This photo, however, is included without context, so it's unclear whether the person behind this meme meant the evidence is the biblical tree or just the beauty of trees and sunsets in general from like a design standpoint. And that kind of goes along with the bottom right tile of this meme, which is the photo of the Milky Way in the sky.
Yep.
So presuming that the intention of the memer isn't to suggest that we don't understand how the sun sets or what the Milky Way is, I think it is likely an argument from the point of beauty. So if it looks pretty, then it looks designed, and therefore it must be designed. That's the whole... A lot of creationists make this kind of argument. Well, doesn't the world look designed? Doesn't it look pretty? So therefore there must have been a brilliant designer who created it.
Sure.
The arguments from the design from the point of design, they're purely speculative, and I don't think they deserve a whole lot of attention. It's a clumsy argument to point out that naturally occurring things look designed. So like if all of nature is designed, then what standard of non-design is there to compare it to? So like what is not designed that we can compare it to a sunset or the Milky Way and indeed identify these two things as having been designed? You know what I mean? Potholes.
So I don't think they were designed.
Potholes were not, but the
They just
roads
happened.
were built by people, right? And then just wear and tear. I don't know. So put a pothole side by side with the Milky Way, and you're like, this pothole was not designed on purpose, but this Milky Way clearly was. Sure. Right? Okay. I'll take it. I'll take it. I believe in God now.
Okay.
Yes.
Got him.
So in the lower left-hand corner of the meme, we've got bees building a hive with some honeycomb. And my first reaction to the meme was confusion as to why the bees were included.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure about that one.
Yeah. So actually, okay, to be honest, that's not entirely true. My first reaction to the meme was to laugh at the Shroud of Turin being included. Because it's known to be a hoax. But we will get to that and why I find that very funny. But after a bit of amusement at the bees, I remembered that an argument from creationists is often that honeycombs are too perfect to be explained naturally.
Okay.
How are these bees so keen on knowing that hexagons are the perfect shape to fit together in a repeating pattern? This is clearly an element of design. a sign of higher intelligence.
Oh, just trial and error, man. They tried squares, they tried circles, didn't work. They're
You know,
like,
and
let's
that
try this one.
honestly, that would be a
Yeah.
sufficient enough explanation to say
Yeah.
that a designer is not required for hexagons. You
Yeah.
know, it doesn't have to be divine intervention that causes bees to make hexagons, right? But first, there are imperfections in there. You can see them, but to be fair, they are mostly hexagons in this picture.
Yeah.
The issue is that simple physics describes why they have this shape. In experiments, it's been demonstrated that softening wax and molding it into simple circles and then easing these circular cells together causes them to form like nearly perfect hexagons locking together.
Mm-hmm.
Simple physics. Push enough of these circles together, they're soft, they will form into hexagons.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because like that's the way they fit. That's the way they flatten together.
Mm-hmm.
Bees accomplish this by producing bee wax and then forming it into circular cells, warming it with their body to force in more cells, and the honeycombs, like they eventually become hexagons. And this has been shown in nature. Photographs of immediately created cells in a honeycomb are circular, simple, crude kind of circles.
Okay.
And then if you a picture side by side, if you take one that's 2 days old right next to it, the one that's 2 days old, fucking perfect looking hexagons.
Cool. Okay.
So yeah, it's pretty neat. It's a neat thing. But as described in a paper published in the Journal of Royal Society Interface, quote, the mechanism of this pattern transformation is rather mundane. Because it's simple physics. You
Yeah.
shove them together for a while, they become hexagons.
Okay.
Simple physics. Now, on to the fraudulent evidences included in this meme. This is my favorite stuff. This is the real bullshit. This is intentional bullshit. And we will start with the most famously false con, the Shroud of Turin. So the bottom middle tile of this meme, so if you're playing at home, of our 6 tiles, we have crossed off the top middle, which is the sunset, the bottom right, which is the arm of the Milky Way that we can see in the night sky, and we have crossed out the bees, which is the bottom left. So now we are going to address the bottom middle tile, and it looks like a blurry negative of Jesus, or what we classically see as the image of Jesus with the beard and the crown of thorns. For those who are unfamiliar with the Shroud of Turin, in 1354, more than 13 centuries after Jesus would have been crucified, a church in Champagne, France claimed to have the cloth in which Jesus was buried.
Just found it in the attic somewhere in a
Yeah,
box.
just and it conveniently has a pretty clear image of Jesus himself from head to toe. Now, this image is a negative that was taken of the shroud. They found that when they have the negative image, it looks more detailed. It looks more identifiable. And there is actually an explanation as to why that is. But most notably, Jesus' face is visible in the shroud. This is notable for a couple of reasons. First, how would we be able to tell it was Jesus if it didn't have the classic Jesus face with the cloud?
Yeah, it looks just like him.
Yeah, it does. It looks. I mean, if we know Jesus, that's him. That's Jesus right there. We know him from his YouTube channel. So I'll get to the second reason why this is notable. But first, last year there was a document discovered from a philosopher, scholar, and thinker, Nicole Olem is the way his last name is pronounced. It looks like Oresme or whatever, but it's Olem because he is a French person who was a French person. And at the time of the revealing of the shroud, so he was alive during that time, and he immediately denounced it as a fraud. That's what that most recent. Now, some articles will say that. Some papers were discovered that provide further proof that the shroud is a fraud. I hesitate on that. I wouldn't say further proof. I'd say further evidence that it's a fraud. It sounds pretty much like it's a fraud. I don't think there's a lot of doubt in most scholars' minds that the Shroud of Turin is not a valid artifact. Or I'm going to call him Nicole, Nicolas. Whatever, Nick. Let's call him Nick. That's easy. So he talked about how he doesn't need to hear how Miracles were provided to whomever because this is a common and consistent fraud from churches that he is already familiar with. To Orem, this was just another fake artifact in order to gather attention and financial donations to the Church of Champagne, which he called one of almost infinite such fake relics. Uh, Also, carbon dating used on samples from the shroud found that it was from around the 13th or 14th century, which would be consistent with it being created at the time that the Church of Champagne revealed it.
Aha.
Yeah. Some argue about the carbon dating not being done right, or that the carbon date of the artifact would have been reset by a fire that occurred in 1532. However, the carbon dating that was done in the 80s was concluded with a 95% confidence in the accuracy of the cloth's age. Furthermore, when it comes to contaminating or when it comes to dating artifacts within these time frames, say 40 AD to the 13th to the 14th century,
Right.
to carbon dating things in that within that time frame, in order for it to be contaminated enough by a fire to cause the cloth from 40 AD to look as if it was from 1300 AD, it would have to be pretty significant. And we're talking like 60 to 68% of the carbon in the samples by weight would have to be from contamination, which would easily be detectable by the eye through a microscope, or maybe even with just the naked eye. You'd be
Yeah.
able to see the contamination pretty visibly. No such contamination was known in the shroud. Plus, cleaning techniques are done on samples like this, where they clean it with certain acid cleaners and things like that to make sure to not accidentally test contaminants instead.
Okay.
But even so, even if they had some contamination in there, the amount of contamination would not have offset the age of the Shroud of Turin by all that much. It would have been a ton of contamination in order to add 1300 years in that time frame, especially when the shroud is not all that old. It's from the 14th century.
Right.
So some nuclear engineers theorize that the carbon date could be thrown off by such a degree if Jesus' body let out a blast of radiation when he resurrected. So this shroud is like a photograph, right? And it's a photograph of Jesus when he nuclear blasted back to life.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so that's what happened.
Well, I mean, people don't come back to life very often. Maybe that's how it works.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been dead for what, 3 days?
That is literally one of the theories. There's a guy who wrote 2 books and was going to release a third one on the Shroud of Turin, which
Just on the shroud?
how much can you fucking talk about a cloth?
God.
I mean, come on. And this is a guy who wants to say it's real, and this is one of the theories as to why it is.
Okay.
But to be fair, he is also one of the people who reviewed some of the papers, saying that there is not enough contamination in it to offset it, the age of the Shroud of Turin. So he's at least accepting that bit of evidence, but to the
now
way,
he's coming up with
but it was the
wild
nuclear
theories.
blast, yeah, which is patently absurd. I mean, but to be fair, in the realm of miracles, logic is necessarily out the window.
Sure.
Which brings me to another reason why the inclusion of Jesus' face in the shroud is significant. So Jesus would have been buried with the Jewish tradition at the time, meaning that he would have been wrapped in a cloth up to his shoulders, not his face. His face would have been tied with a handkerchief or a separate, smaller cloth. And so if anybody is to suggest, well, this is Jesus, he was laid to rest differently, just know that that would be at odds with the Bible itself. So let me read from John chapter 20, verses 3 through 7.
Okay.
So Peter and the other disciples started for the tomb. This is a New International Version for anybody who's picky about that. So Peter and the other disciples started for the tomb. Both were running, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He bent over and looked in at the strips of linen lying there, but did not go in. Then Simon Peter came along behind him and went straight into the tomb. He saw the strips of linen lying there, as well as the cloth that had been wrapped around Jesus' head. The cloth was still lying in its place, separate from the linen.
Oh, no, that was from the nuclear blast.
It says a separate. It says it literally says it's a separate
No,
item
I know.
around his face. All right. Nuclear blast or no? I mean, I'm not saying the nuclear blast didn't happen. Maybe it did, but those were two pieces of cloth that were different. If you want to say the Bible is the infallible word of God, it says right there that it's in two different pieces.
Right.
Of course, believers will argue that no, Jesus' body could have been wrapped from head to toe in the shroud, and the face cloth was on top of the shroud, which that starts to become a turtles all the way down argument, and I am not going to waste my time on that. Furthermore, recent analysis shows that the markings on the shroud correspond with the cloth being laid flatly on top of a relief to form the image, rather than being wrapped around any body or anything. So, which is why you get that negative image. So you got your darker. You have darker, like in the negative, it's light where it should be, but in the actual image of the on the shroud, it looks like a negative. That's
Okay.
why they had the idea of photographing it in negative and releasing that image, which
Okay.
did give kind of a better looking image in the end.
Hmm.
But the reason why they had it looked like a negative is because the cloth was laid on a relief when they made that image. It was faked in that way.
Gotcha.
So anyway, the shroud is fake, hence its carbon dating corresponding with the time that the shroud first surfaced in Champagne, France. It was fake. It's faked by the church. OM believes that the reason why they fake it is to get more donations and more attention to the church, to
Okay.
that specific church.
Yeah.
So we move on to the top right image. So this is actually kind of an awesome piece of artwork. It's detailed and it's very talentfully created. It is a picture of the Virgin Mary, and it's very cool. It's a very neat piece of art. However, Art Schmart says the believers in miracles. So, according to the story and why this image is included in the meme, on December 9th, 1531, Juan Diego, an indigenous man who had recently converted to Christianity, was claiming to have been visited by the Virgin Mary, who had told him to tell the bishop to build a church on top of the hill of Tepeyac, which is where Mexico. It's kind of near where Mexico City is located now. So they built a whole metric shit ton of stuff there. So they built a lot of stuff there now.
Oh yeah.
But he was, supposedly this guy had been visited by the Virgin Mary, told this bishop, she told me to tell you to build a church on that hill, right?
Okay.
The bishop, presumably wondering why Mary didn't just tell him herself, was understandably skeptical. So he asked Diego to prove that he had been visited by the Blessed Virgin by going to a normally barren hill and returning with roses, which would have been out of season in December. Thus, acquiring them would require divine intervention,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
So, Diego went to the hill, found lots of roses. He gathered them in his rough cactus fiber sack, and he came back to the bishop to reveal the roses. And as he did, everyone yelled, "Holy crap!" I'm paraphrasing. Because upon this cactus fiber cloth was a beautiful image of the Virgin Mary with a gold crown upon her head.
Cool.
Wait, what's that, Bobby? That you don't see a crown?
Well, you can't. I mean, it's kind of cropped off at the top.
That's another thing.
Ah, did they do that on purpose?
I'm gonna say yes, allegedly,
Okay.
but yes. So, and I'll get to why. It's beautiful. Uh, so, the reason why the crown is not there, that's probably because it was removed in the 1800s by people who definitely believed this to be a miraculous image. Because what screams true belief more than altering a miracle? but, Bobby,
Mhm. Yeah.
there's a lot of evidence for this being a miracle that happened in 1531 and wasn't heard of until 100 years later. According to Our Lady of Guadalupe Parish, science can't explain it. Yes, it can. It's a painting that a person did. There's no sign of deterioration after almost 500 years. Yes, there is. I can see it.
Yeah.
it was printed on cactus fibers that deteriorate after 50 to 60 years. No, it wasn't. It was printed on cloth, or it was painted on cloth.
Yeah.
So this is from the Academy of American Franciscan History, contesting the claims of supernatural authorship. A physical and visual analysis of the painting on cloth reveals it to be a human product fashioned with materials easily obtained in 16th century New Spain. So another claim from Our Lady of Guadalupe Parish. The stars on Our Lady's mantle coincide with the constellations in the sky on December 12th, 1531. All who have scientifically examined the image of Our Lady over the centuries confess that its properties are absolutely unique and so inexplicable in human terms that the image can only be supernatural. Except the stars do not correspond to a goddamn thing. They are clearly just in diagonal rows. Like they're just in diagonal rows on her. You can. It's hard to see on the screen.
Yeah.
They're just in rows.
Okay.
What fucking constellations? They're just in rows. It's idiotic. Anyway. So they don't even really follow the flow of the mantle being worn, and plenty of scholars who have examined it have not confessed that it had to be supernatural. So at least that is an outright lie. That is just a plain lie. And the crown. So this is interesting. It's likely that the crown was removed due to gold paint peeling off the miracle. Later,
that happens.
Yeah. Later, a painter confessed on his deathbed that he was ordered by a clergyman to remove it. And according to historians, the decision to leave the crown off rather than replace it was likely to make the image more consistent with contemporary images of the Virgin Mary. You see, it's a really outdated miracle after all.
Sure.
Yeah. And the miracle didn't account for the crown not being included in other images later on. So, but I did get curious if we know the name of this clergyman who ordered the painter to remove it. And boy, do we. This is good. So it was a diocesan priest in Mexico named Antonio Pancart, who was just such a venerable figure that one of the heirs to his estate referred to the cash and land he left behind, quote, "Without fear of mistake and being called a liar, I can affirm are the profits of robberies and illegal combinations." That was a great clergyman. Conveniently, in the 1880s, after the coronation of another artifact in the Americas, Plancart, presumably seeing dollar signs, decided that this shroud there should be a coronation for the not the shroud. There should be a coronation for this. It's called the Virgin of Guadalupe is the name of the image. So there should be a coronation there. But she already has a crown, you say. No. That's the convenient part. She doesn't have one and never did. And if you claim that she did, Plancart will sue you. I kid you not. When the story of the painter's deathbed confession came to light, he had allegedly had a legal declaration made, or tried to at least, that the crown was never on the painting in the first place and did in fact threaten to sue anybody who said it did. So this is in spite of the fact that any visual representation prior to the 19th century shows the image with a 12-pointed crown. And witnesses claim that the crown was still there as recently as 1837. However, a coronation took place, and I think it's like in the 1880s. A coronation takes place. New crown was made for the Lady of Guadalupe, which was odd to believers of the original story anyway, since God himself had already given a crown to this entity. And in planning this coronation, Plancart published a pamphlet in which he emphasized the duty of the faithful to provide financial support to the coronation. Because of fucking course he did. Yeah. Fucking of course he did. Sure, the whole thing is fucking nuts. And during the coronation, lending further support to how venerable this guy was, creditors were trying to secure money from him. Because they knew he's finally getting money and we got to get the money now or we're not getting it. So the Virgin of Guadalupe Once again, not evidence of God. Um, Now, on to what I found to be the most interesting read.
Mhm.
Uh, this is the top left image. We see a lot of people standing in a crowd and a big swirly thing in the sky. It looks like the sun is having a fit or something, or being sucked into a black hole or something like that. And I had no idea what this was when I first saw it, but I really enjoyed reading about it. So, this is what's known as the miracle of the sun.
Okay.
In the spring of 1916, three shepherd children living near Fatima, Portugal, began claiming to have visions of angels. And on May 13th, 1917, they received a visit by an apparition of a woman who called herself the Lady of the Rosary. She insisted that people pray the rosary every day. She also promised to reveal her identity. Spoiler alert, it's the Virgin Mary, and perform a miracle that all may believe on October 13th, 1917. She visited the children on the 13th of every month leading up to that miracle date, except for August 13th, because the kids were incarcerated that day. And I guess the Blessed Virgin didn't have visiting rights. And considering that all did not start believing after October 13th, I can safely say that her promise was not entirely fulfilled. Now, some may argue that, and this is what the kids said that because of them being incarcerated that day, so they had to move their scheduled date with the Virgin to the 19th of August.
Mhm.
And she was upset about that.
Sure.
So now the miracle's not going to be as grand as it was going to be. It's going to be less of a miracle now. But she's still going to do it. Just she's not going to be
Yeah.
enthusiastic about it
Yeah.
because they missed their
Well,
planned.
I mean, she's busy. She's got things to do.
Yeah,
She
she
had
can't just
the 13th all scheduled out. It was
Yeah,
like,
and these fucking kids went and got incarcerated. Good lord. Um, so like they got incarcerated because a political leader thought that they were so. At the time, which I'll kind of get to a little more in this, there was a very secular government in Portugal at the time, and a politician, then I can't remember who it was, a governor of that area or something like that, uh, tricked them into, kidnapping them and incarcerating them. He offered them a ride, ended up kidnapping them instead, incarcerating them,
jeez.
and then demanded that they admit that they were making a fraud.
Mhm.
But they didn't. They were steadfast about not, supposedly. I mean, a lot of this story is very tainted by people kind of polishing up
Oh
things,
yeah, making it
But
look good.
anyway, so uh, a major event did happen on October 13th, though, and
Mhm.
that was the miracle date. That was the date that the miracle is going to happen. So
Mhm.
tens of thousands of people gathered where this miracle is supposed to take place, which was also the site where the children claimed to have first seen the Lady of the Rosary, who is presumed to be the Virgin Mary. Shocking. So, a contemporary estimate by a local journalist put the crowd at about 30 or 40,000, but later
Oh,
estimates put that number at about 70,000 people. So a
wow.
lot of people showed up to this. And this miracle was to take place at high noon. So the high noon would have been at around 1:30 at that time. It actually would have been 12:30, but because of some uh, I think it was to try to make communication easier between for the military at the time. They had the Great War going on, World War I was happening, and so like they went by a different standard of time. So even though the sun would have been at its zenith at about 12:30, it actually would hit 1:30 according to people's watches in
Okay.
that area at that time. So, uh, according to most accounts, what happened was most people present that day witnessed the sun behaving in bizarre ways. The sun danced or moved around in a serpentine fashion. Um, when later asked, most people's accounts corroborated, and I have some issues with that. One witness sort of berated in the book. This book is called "The Whole Truth About Fatima," Volume One, Science and the Facts. It wasn't very scientific or very factual, at least not what I read in it. A lot of it was kind of real condescending and speculative.
Mm.
But One witness was kind of berated in that book, but she had said that she witnessed nothing. Like most others, she was able to look at the sun without irritation to her eyes, but she was irritated by the people around her clamoring in awe at what looked to her to just be the sun. They were all yelling about the miracle taking place, but the reason why this matters, so like most of the accounts of what happened that day, they say they saw the sun move around.
Hmm.
She says that she didn't. So I'm not saying that her not seeing it suggests that it didn't happen. But the reason why this is important to point out is that she felt she must not have been worthy to see the miracle. And
Okay.
that's the important part of this. That
Hmm.
may explain why so many eyewitness accounts corroborated the later you ask them. Over a longer period of time, their stories kind of converge. They become more similar. Um,
Okay.
because if you saw something different or you didn't see anything at all, maybe you weren't worthy, right?
Right. Right.
So there is that incentive to have a story that fits what everybody else saw. So
Mm,
they saw the miracle, you must have seen the miracle too. Otherwise, maybe you're not Christian enough.
sure.
So,
I have a
uh,
theory.
yeah.
So you got all these people standing around, and it looks like a hot environment.
Yeah.
Probably not a lot of drinks out there. Maybe they're just heat exhaustion,
Yeah.
dehydration.
Well, I will
One guy
say
sees it, says, "Hey, do you see that?" Yeah, of course I see it. Yeah,
yeah,
sure. What do you see?
everybody's
Yeah.
everybody's having like everybody's having heat stroke. No, so they actually when they were walking to that location, a lot of them got soaked in the rain, and it was
Oh,
very
okay.
cold that day.
All
So
right, maybe that wasn't
it
it then.
does look hot in
Yeah, it
that
looks like a
picture. It
hot, dry
really does look like a
place.
hot, dry picture.
Yeah.
And some people say that that's part of the miracle. So like everybody's
Uh,
clothes dried up miraculously, and the ground dried up miraculously too.
mm,
What I think is that they
not
weren't
because
as
it's high
wet
noon.
as they like. I think they weren't as wet as they thought they were. It was
Yeah.
cold, so
Yeah.
they felt wetter, and it seemed like a more dramatic soaking than what they were
They were
putting
all
on because
expecting something
yeah,
miraculous. Yeah.
people don't usually stand out in the rain in December, right?
Not
So
usually.
I just imagine that was probably more to do with it than the sun miraculously evaporating all the water instantly. That seems absurd. Um, and immediate accounts of that don't quite say that, but then you give a little bit of time, then suddenly that's part of the story. So many of the um, uh, witnessed is they claim to have seen different things, but many of those different things kind of become part of everyone's story. Like if you give it enough time, and you don't really need to look much further than the newspaper O Seculo, which is actually the reason why this event received such validation over time. So O Seculo, which translates to the century, was a paper from the Republican Party in Portugal whose official stance at the time was that of secularism. The paper took a naturalist approach to most subjects and often addressed claims of miracles with sarcasm and skepticism, and were very critical of those kinds of things. During this event, however, the journalist Avelino de Almeida, sent there to cover this miracle, he claims to have witnessed the sun moving as well, moving and dancing around, even though normally he would write disparaging things about an event like this.
Okay.
And I'll quote from this. It says in the article that he published, I think it was like the next day or a couple days right after. Um, Quote, to the amazed eyes of those people who, pale with astonishment and with the heads uncovered, faced the blue sky, the sun trembled. The sun had never before seen brusque movements all beyond all cosmic laws. The sun danced according to the typical expression of the peasants. And later on, some asked others if they saw it or what they saw. The majority confessed to have seen a trembling or dancing sun, but others declared to have seen the smiling face of the Virgin herself, and swear that the sun spun around like a wheel of fireworks, that it descended almost to the point of burning the earth with its rays. There are those who say that they saw it successfully change color. So
Hmm.
this guy, he saw it move around,
Okay.
but then he was saying these are other things that people claim to have seen. The Virgin's face,
Right. Yeah.
the sun spinning like fireworks, and the sun successfully changing colors and things like that. So that's his immediate account of this, and he does attest to seeing the sun move and dance. But he attributes these other claims to other people.
Hmm.
20 years later, he has this to say about the event. Quote, at the height of its zenith, appears and begins dancing in a violent and convulsive ballet, which a large number of people imagine to be a serpentine dance. So beautiful and brilliant colors successfully covered the solar surface. So now, 20 years later, he saw the colors.
Mm.
The stories corroborate much better over time. So, like, put enough distance between the event and the stories, and they suddenly start to converge. Now he saw the colors too,
Sure.
and which it's there's like some incentive there, you know. But there's something else about this event that I read, and this got me to literally yell at my computer screen, "Those little fucking charlatans!" Now, to be fair, this doesn't prove that they're lying little sacks of prepubescent shit, but I have a lot of trouble not raising an eyebrow at this. So, this is an eyewitness account by Dr. Jose Maria de Almeida. Dr. Jose Maria de Almeida Garrett. A lot of names.
Hmm.
He's a professor at the Faculty of Sciences in Coimbra, Portugal. And this is from the book, The New Documents of Fatima. Quote, at the exact spot where the children were, a column of smoke, thin, fine, and bluish, which extended up to perhaps 2 meters above their heads and evaporated at that height. This phenomenon, perfectly visible to the naked eye, lasted for a few seconds. Not having noted how long it lasted, I cannot say whether it was more or less than a minute. The smoke dissipated abruptly. After some time, it came back to occur a second time, and then a third. Those little fuckers were firing off fireworks. They were firing fireworks off into the fucking clouds. And these people saw it as a fucking miracle.
Yep.
That is what I don't care what anybody says. That's what happened.
Yeah.
That's what that sounds like
Yeah,
to me.
it does.
And I looked it up. That the wheel of fireworks thing. So I think it was like called a Catherine wheel. Was the one that would be on the ground and you would light it and it would spin, you know, on the ground. So like they propel the fireworks would propulse it to spin around. They had ones too that would fly up into the sky and spin like that. They had them
wow.
at that time.
Okay.
They had a lot of different types of fireworks at that time.
Interesting.
I think those kids were fucking firing off fireworks.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, and they tricked a shitload of people with them.
That would have made my day. Like if I'd done that as a kid, I'd be like, I just got 70,000 people.
I
to believe it."
guarantee the kids were elated. Like on their way out, one of the kids is like, "Oh, and the Mary says the war is going to end soon too." You know, like that really happened. So like these kids they were having a fucking blast. You know they were.
They were totally messing with people.
Yeah, and honestly, like
Good
they
for
were
them.
like once they were starting to gather a little bit attention, I'm sure like I don't know this. I don't want to say like for the record, I'm kind of speculating a little bit here, but I'm sure that there were people incentivized to help them because there were a lot of people who were highly invested in combating the secular government in Portugal at that time. So, you know, churches were not, you know, they wanted to establish and they wanted to make more money and they didn't want a secular government. They wanted, you know, their influence in everyday life, just like the church does today. And I guarantee that they had some help, some support from somebody like that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know that. I wasn't able to find specifically that kind of record, but that sounds like they were firing off fireworks.
Yeah, it does.
That really sounds like they're like
That's
of all the
hilarious.
explanations I've seen a lot. I was reading through a lot of like the skeptics explanations and stuff. And there was like, well, there might have been kind of a mass delusion kind of thing where you know people start clamoring, everybody decides they're seeing the same thing. Maybe there was a phenomenon where the clouds were kind of warping the sky or whatever, making the sun look like it moved around. And all that's possible. Maybe one of those are the explanation. But to me, this sounds like the kids were firing fireworks into the clouds. And like one of the things too is like part of the miracle is that the clouds opened up and you know, as if like it just miraculously the rain stopped and the clouds opened up and there was the sun visible and we could look at it and we could look at dead on and it started doing all this crazy stuff and colors are coming out and it's spinning like a Catherine wheel and it's, you know, it's dancing all over the place in serpentine fashion like a fucking rocket would, you know. Like there's just there's a number of things like that indicate to me that these kids were fucking firing off fireworks into the clouds and tricking a whole lot of people. That is what I'm most convinced happened.
Yeah, I believe that.
I couldn't believe it when I read that because, like, even reading the skeptics' explanations, like, a lot of them were kind of fixated on this, like, a little bit of a mass delusion thing. And I mean, certainly there was that
Oh yeah,
influence. There was an influence for people to see that. They were there to witness a miracle, right?
yeah,
And they're all supposed to see it. And 70,000 people don't just show up unincentivized,
yeah.
So there might have been a little bit of that, but the fact that it happened, and it didn't happen exactly at high noon. So this is one thing, like they're like, well, it happened, right at high noon, 1:30, whatever. It happened like 1:20 ish. And
Kids couldn't wait anymore. They're like,
well,
do
no,
it.
I think when the clouds started to part, they're like, we're gonna have to do it now.
Oh, okay.
Like we're gonna have to fire them up now. If there's not enough clouds, they're gonna see the fireworks. But this is also
Oh yeah.
open enough that we can get the lights to look nuts, like we did earlier when we were playing around with fucking fireworks on the 13th of every month. Like that's a little bit editorializing, but this the kids they're tricking people.
Yeah, sounds like it.
I'm convinced of it. So yeah, no, that covers all the squares in there. I just it's not, again, it's not my intention to make fun of religion or to say God doesn't exist or anything like that. But
Yeah.
be wary, please. If you're a person of faith, be wary of anybody who's trying to sell you evidence.
Yeah.
They're probably trying to trick you. They are probably using religion to deceive, which those are bad people. Like religious people are not necessarily bad people by default by any means.
No.
But people using religion to trick people, those are bad people. So, anyway, what do you think?
I think religion's just a lot of weird stuff. Believe what you want to believe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'm like, I am live and let live kind of person.
Yeah.
Just I abstain.
Yeah.
And it's things like this that make me skeptical
Mm-hmm.
of the
There's a lot of bad press
organized
out
religion.
there for religion.
Yeah.
There's people want to believe in it because they want something to believe in, and I get that. But
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
there's so much, ridiculous stuff like this out there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like this one, a lot of people, and it's interesting. Something that comes up a lot is that there's a lot of evidence for the Shroud of Turin being a hoax. There's a lot of evidence for the Virgin of Guadalupe being a hoax. The Fatima event, the miracle of the sun, is often cited as the best evidence that Christians have for a miracle. And even the accounting, and I read this, I didn't just read this on a skeptic website. I read that part, those columns of smoke firing up above the kids, like where the kids are standing, said where they are standing, these columns of smoke were going and disappearing right above them. That is considered to be another miraculous part. And I read that
Probably just a bottle rocket.
yeah, and I read it in a book
Yeah.
that was accounting all the evidence for it being a miracle, and that was included in there.
Oh wow.
So they see that you've got to be turning off your reason, right? You have to be
Yeah.
turning off your intellect to see that and think, well, that's even more miracle. No, that's evidence that the kids are fucking around. Like, but anyway, thank you all so much for listening. Again, not telling people not to be religious. Just be skeptical of people telling you that they have evidence of what you're supposed to be using faith to believe in. Just be skeptical of these people.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all so much for listening. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye. That's hilarious. Oh my god. If those kids actually did that. Oh.
Kind of proud of them, honestly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If I'd done something like that as a kid, I'd be like, dude, we just got the entire town. There's so many people out there and they all believe it. Bunch of suckers.
I enjoyed that one.
That was like a fun one. I've never heard of that though. Where was it? Fatima?
Yeah, Fatima.
Mm.
Sweet.
Where even is that? Did you say? I don't remember.
Portugal.
Portugal.
Yeah. So we went international. We had South America. We went intercontinental.
Yeah.
At South America, and we had.
Who knows where those bees are from?